And we see with Elijah suffers from depression and burnout. And you don't get a lot of sermons on it, but the fact that we have a cameo, like a zoom in on the life of Elijah, that God has included it in His Word, that we can see that Elijah went through this real personal struggle and how God ministered to him, is unbelievably precious. So we're gonna dig into that later on tonight. So let's think about the events that have led up to this situation with Elijah. Right? He has declared a drought. Okay, so also known as the people now blame you for their problems. Right? It's your fault. Right? Thanks for this. It's your fault. Right? And he has to go live alone in the wilderness. Right? Also known as leave all your family and friends for a couple of years and go live in the bush. Right? He gets fed by the birds. And in Deuteronomy, they're called unclean birds. So you've got unclean birds bringing you your food. Great. And you're living by this creek, and then the creek dries up. Great. Hang on, did I hear from God that I'm supposed to be here, and there's these unclean birds feeding me, and now the creek's dried up? Well, I guess that's my fault too, isn't it? It's your own stupid fault that the creek's dried up, because if you said so, it would rain. And God hasn't given him the word to say, make it rain. So I could just imagine, and then he has to leave his country, go up to Sidon, and live with the widow. Again, he's in hiding, so he's not really doing a lot of socializing, a lot of partying with his friends. And it's not just, there's everyone is looking for him. The Ahab is chasing around all these other kings to see if they've got him. And so they're all hunting him. And, we could only imagine, what it's like for him. Then he goes to challenge Ahab, and he discovers on the way that Jezebel has killed all of God's prophets. They're all gone. He didn't know this up until now. He's been away. He meets this guy, one of the attachés to the king, and he says, go tell Ahab I'm going to meet him. He says, hey, look, I've been doing good things. I tried to save these prophets. Jezebel has killed all of these prophets. And, by the way, Jezebel is hunting you. Just in case it wasn't bad enough, there is a number on your head, right? And she's making good with these promises. She's killing people, right? So he goes to Mount Carmel. Here we go. What happens is he challenges the prophets of Baal to a trial by fire. We know that God answers, sends the fire, and then he kills all of the prophets of Baal because there's no one else left to help him, right? So it's just him on his own. So it's 450 prophets of Baal, 400 prophets of Asherah. So it's 900 against him. He kills them all. He prays for rain. Huge victory. Send the fire. Altar burns. Prays for rain. God sends rain. Breaks the drought. So you'd think that's great. Like there's this huge high point in his life. And then he tells the king to go home in his chariot. And it says the power of the Lord comes upon him. And he runs in front of him and he beats the chariot. Because God's so strengthened his body that he could outrun the chariot with the rain and the slosh and all that's coming. So either the chariot, either way, the chariot's going quite fast and he's running faster, or the chariot's getting stuck in the mud. Well, he's running through the mud as well. So and either way, it's a supernatural event from God to give him all this strength. And you could imagine, what was he thinking? Right? He's been alone. He's been struggling in the wilderness. Now he's had this huge victory, this huge high point up here. And then the next verse, so this is all in chapter 18, and then we come to chapter 19. We have a zoom lens in. Up until now, we've just been hearing about Elijah from a distance. He's made a call to about the rain. He's off to the desert. He's off to Sidon. That's kind of what we know at a distance. Now we're zoomed right in on his personal life. And we see here on this next page, so Ahab goes home and tells Jezebel what's going on, right? And that Elijah had done and how he had killed all her prophets, right? All the prophets with the sword, because they all used to eat at her table. That's the other thing that we see. So she was materially supporting all of these prophets at the king and queen's table. So they were her little pet prophets. They're now dead. She's not impressed. So she sent a messenger to Elijah saying, may the gods deal punish me and do so severely if I don't make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. And it all comes crashing down for Elijah. And it says, he became afraid and he ran for his life. So he's just had this huge victory, this huge big thing, and all of a sudden it comes crashing down and he's terrified. He's terrified. And so you see he has a servant with him. He runs south. The next thing it says, when he came to Beersheba that belongs to Judah, he left his servant there and he went on a day's journey into the wilderness. So he got out of the northern kingdom into Judah. He's kind of safe. He's at least protected the life of his servant. Then he says, you stay here. So now he's pushing everybody away from him. You can see it's kind of what's happening in his life. And he, here we go. He's pushed everyone away. He's run away. It actually says he stops eating. He just stopped eating. He sits under, he lies down, and he just wants to die. He just wants to die. And it's not something, in fact he says it twice, and it's not something that is like a quick thing for him. He repeats the same thing over a period of 40 days, because when God chats to him, he's still got, so he's not just having a bad day, and feeling bad today, but I'll be better tomorrow. Something significant has happened in his life. So here's the scriptures there that talk about it. He sat down under the broom tree and he prayed that he might die. And he said to them, actually, that's an interesting quote. He prayed that he might die. He didn't take his life, but he was thinking it. He wanted to die. And, I was sick a couple of years ago, and I reached a point where I woke up one morning and my meds weren't working, and I turned to Pauline and said, I decided to die today. I wasn't depressed, wasn't upset. I've had enough. I'm pressing the button. I'm picking that the escape door. I'd like to go, please. So I understand this. And you think, well, how did Jesus ever identify with that? We have this verse when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he said, Jesus said to them, I am deeply grieved to the point of death. Right? Other translations say, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. It's also known as I'm so sad I want to die. And yet the scripture says that Jesus was without sin. So we can see that there's a situation here. This is not sin, feeling that sad. This is not a sin. But in the midst of what Elijah was going through, God wanted to minister and care for his servant. And that's what we see in this cameo in chapter 19. And he says to the Lord, in fact, he says, I have been very zealous. They've killed all the prophets. I am alone, am left, and now they're wanting to take me. He thinks he's the last one. So any concept of righteousness up in the north, it's all dead. It's all gone. And he's the only one that's left. They've killed them all in his absence, and now he might as well go because they're going to kill me. So God, I think let's turn off the lights. I'll be the last one out. That's what he's thinking. That's what he's thinking. So, this is the bit. So God cares for his prophet, right? First of all, he sends an angel under that broom tree. He sends an angel to feed him. He actually wakes him up twice, and he says, no, you've got to eat this food because otherwise you won't be able to make the journey. So up until now, all he's done is run from the north down into Judah, where he thinks he's somewhat safe. Now he's under a broom tree, and he says, that's it, I need to die. And so the angel says, you need to go on this journey, and you need to have some supernatural food, some strength for you to get on this journey. So he changes Elijah's journey from running from his problem to running to God. Up until now, he's just been running from Jezebel, and he's made his way down into the top of Judah. Now, he's not running from Jezebel, he's running to something. And he's decided his journey, he's going down to Mount Horeb, where Moses met with God, because he needs to have a chat with God. The only one who can fix this is God. The only one. And so God doesn't berate him. He doesn't discourage him. He supports him and enables him to go on this journey because he has to figure out a few things in his head. You know, it's not a quick fix. So God ministers to Elijah, and actually we see that God gives him 4 things, right? So what happens is that Elijah makes it down into a cave, and he's in the cave, and the Spirit of God says to him, "Go out, because the Lord wants to talk to you." And then a couple of things happen, and he doesn't go out. And eventually he hears this whisper, and he goes out and talks to the Lord. So I've got some activities for you to do. So there are 2 questions that I need you all to answer yourselves. So if you've got a Bible with you, hopefully you do, read 1 Kings 19, verse 8 to 14. And I want to hear your thoughts about how does God minister to Elijah. Okay, let's take a short moment while you do that. 1 Kings 19, 8 to 14. He's in the cave going to talk to God. So that's the question, how does God minister to him? So the second question there, 1 Kings 19, 15 to 18. What 4 things does God give to Elijah? Verses 15 to 18. Try and find 4 things. Yeah? Okay. Let's fill in the gaps. So, I think that God ministers to Elijah through gentleness and grace. Okay. So, there are some other things that happen on the mountain while he's still in the cave, and he didn't go out to them, right? What were they? Earthquake, wind, fire. Okay? Now, there are times when God has chosen to reveal himself to, to Moses and to others through these things. He's revealed himself through fire, the pillar of fire. There was a great wind that separated the Red Sea. I haven't seen God reveal himself through an earthquake, right? But he was, that's the right way to put this. God chose to show those things to us, right? To us, and he knew that wasn't how God wanted to minister to him, right? There are valid ministries today in dealing with depression and burnout that might seem like fire, casting something out or praying down a storm on people, but actually the way God chose to minister to him was through gentleness and grace. Gentleness and grace, and he whispered to him. So that was what I was thinking about that, is I like to look at those other things, and I think of different ways that we could minister people who are struggling with mental health issues, and I think we need to be ministering in gentleness and grace. They don't need the fire, they don't need the wind, they don't need the earthquake shattering their lives. They need gentleness and grace. And that's an example we see for Elijah. Okay, but God does give Elijah 4 things. So I'll read that passage, 15. Go in, by the way, you came to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you are to anoint this guy king over Aram, anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel. That's interesting. And Elisha, son of Shaphat, from blah, 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 as prophet in your place. And then he tells them some other stuff. So I've written that he, first of all, then in verse 18, he says, "But I leave 7,000 in Israel, every knee that is not bowed to Baal and every mouth that has not kissed him." So he's not the only one. He feels like he's the only one, but he's not. So the first thing it's not the first. God gives him truth. It feels like the whole world is closing in on him, and now they're all after him, and now he's going to die. It's just horrible and terrible. And God says, no. So he shares truth with them. He gives them a purpose. He gives them hope. And he gives them a friend. 4 things. Truth, purpose, hope, and a friend. And Elijah does continue to minister in the name of the Lord. Right? We see that. But the next time somebody came after him, fire came down from heaven, burned them up. Okay. So, what it's not, we see in the way God dealt with Elijah that Elijah did not have an evil spirit or a demon. It wasn't some judgment from God because he got it wrong or something. He wasn't simply having a bad day. For a period, all of that travel from Israel down to Judah, then another 40 days down to Mount Horeb, he was consistent with his story between what he said to the angel, what he said in the mountain. He says, this is why I'm here. So he wasn't just having a bad day, nor is it an isolated event in Scripture. Some of the Psalms are particularly good about this. If you're interested, have a meditate on Psalm 42. Why are you so downcast, O my soul? Put your hope in God. It's a great psalm. Great psalm.